Hi, welcome to Community Focus, another show here, and we have Judge Amanda Dunnuck. She is now the city court judge.
Yes.
Maybe one day you'll be the circuit court judge.
Hopefully.
Good to see you.
Nice to see you. Thank you for having me.
Oh, great to have you. And Amanda, the judge, I call her Amanda. I'm supposed to call her judge, but I've known her for a long time.
Yes.
And she is the one who married Chris and I.
Yes.
Just about a year and a half ago, I think it was.
Good memory.
Yeah, that's a good thing. Good thing to have that,
Yes.
especially when your wife's running the camera, right?
Exactly.
But yeah, we done that in your court, and that was a great little wedding there, with family and everything. It was a good time.
Yes.
So you've been in a family of lawyers for quite some time, and I want to know, and the people want to know, how you got started. I mean, you're not a silver spoon type of gal. You've worked on the farm and all that stuff, and then you got into this. Tell us all about that.
Well, I am, my parents, Don and Betty Dunnuck. I am the youngest of their 5 children. I have a twin brother and 3 older brothers, so like you
And one of them's Jake.
One of them's Jake.
I'm sorry.
He's the one in the middle.
I played golf with Jake.
Jake's the one that gets overlooked sometimes. No, he's the one in the middle, and he's the other one that's local, that is also an attorney too. My other 3 brothers are not. They've chosen other paths. But yeah, being the youngest of a family of 5 and the only girl, it would seem that I would have been raised as a princess, but I really was not. We were all treated pretty equally. It didn't matter if it was house chores or if it was yard work or changing the stalls in the barn or things like that. We all kind of pitched in, and we were all expected to do our share regardless.
Good for you. Good
So,
work ethic there. I grew up on a little farm myself.
Yeah.
Wouldn't trade it for the world.
Would not trade it for the world.
So, obviously, with your family being in the law, is that what got you interested in doing that?
Sort of. Obviously, it exposed me to the law. So I remember going to work with my dad. My mom was the office manager, so if I was ever sick, or if we had school days, or snow days, then my brother and I would go to the office, and I was the 10-year-old with the legal pad taking notes and mimicking my dad. But what it did is it exposed me to, I got to see him help people in some of their worst times. People, when people hire lawyers, it's typically not for good things. They are either going through a divorce, they have a civil litigation, criminal defendant. So from a young age, I got to watch my dad interact with people and listen, become a problem solver for them. And then I got to see them react to him as well. And so that's where my motivation for helping people, I've got a real urge I want to get involved and I want to help. But because there's 5 of us, my parents raised independent, strong-willed, strong-minded people, and I wanted to make my own path. So I went to Delta High School, graduated in 1993. Then I went to Ball State, went for about a year and a half, and decided I needed some time to figure out where I was going. I'd started originally with psychology, wanting to make my own path away from law and from what my dad did, but still being able to help people.
Really? I did not know that.
Yeah, I started in psychology. So when I took a break, I ended up hiring in at 911 dispatch. I hired in there August of '95.
No kidding.
Yeah, and I took 911 calls and dispatched for Muncie Police and Delaware County Sheriff's Department. And that's when I got re-exposed to the law, and I got to see it from a police officer's perspective. I got to see it from the victim's perspective when I'm taking the 911 call, or if it's a neighborhood dispute or neighbors fighting over a property line and it gets volatile and the police get called. So I see the police officers working from this perspective, which I'd never seen before. I get to deal with the victims on the phone and the trauma that they're going through, which I'd never been able to do before. Watching the cases kind of work their way through the court system from then my father's perspective as well. So that reintroduced me to the law and motivated me to get back into school. So re-enrolled in Ball State, continued working full-time at dispatch, and graduated in 2000 with a Bachelor of Science in Criminal Justice, enrolled in University of Dayton School of Law, graduated 2003, and came back to Delaware County where I was born and raised in August of 2003 and worked with my father in a private law office up to December of 2020.
Mm-hmm. And then you ran for city court judge.
Yes.
Won that.
Yes.
What's that been like?
That has been, to be honest, I didn't, in the beginning of my career, judge was never on my radar because I had always been exposed to the private practice side of things. In the private practice, when you do, I represented family law, divorces, custody, child support, guardianships, estates, probate. I drafted wills, civil cases. Actually argued a case in front of the Indiana Supreme Court with my dad. So when you're doing things like that, you're in the mix, you're in the gutter with people in hard times of their lives. You take their cases in front of the courts, and that's when you start learning the importance of judicial temperament and the people who sit on the bench. So it was probably 10 to 12 years into my career when I started thinking about judge, and city court ended up coming open. And there was an opening, and so I threw my name in the hat. There was an opportunity to have the spot filled before the election was up. So I submitted my application to then Governor Mike Pence, and he reviewed my application. I was interviewed by his people, and then he appointed me to finish out the prior term, and I began judging city court in July 6th of 2015. My first elected term began January of 2016.
So, how, you sat in there all this time, and as judge and then elected judges, what's that like being the judge? There was places like Winchester and Yorktown at one time, you didn't have to have a law degree to be a judge, and I thought, man, I'd love to be a judge. I'd be a good judge.
It's been...
I'd hang him. Hang him high.
Hang him high. It's been interesting. It's been eye-opening because, again, as an attorney, you think the only thing a judge does is make decisions, and that's not true. There's so much more to being a judge. The administration, the employee management, the judicial administration, the budgetary aspects, being able to work with multiple people on either, on a county council or a city council to get a budget that meets your needs, and then trying to formulate a budget within their means to meet your needs. There's all kinds of administrative stuff that goes on behind the scenes. So that was an eye-opener for me.
And you have to go to the city council sometimes for those budgets, right?
Yes. So I've worked with, Democrat councils. I've worked with Republican councils. I've represented council, the county council. So luckily, I had some budget experience when I came into city court, so that wasn't as daunting of a task as it might have been. But I've enjoyed the role. It's this need I have to give back when I'm sitting there on the bench, and currently I just hear misdemeanors. The question that I have, like on a sentencing, is what portion of the sentence, there's a prescribed sentence by statute. It has to be between this and this. So when I'm looking at a case and it's between this and this by statute, I'm trying to decide what portion of this sentence is going to be punitive, what portion of this sentence is going to be rehabilitative, because the whole process is to punish, deter, and rehabilitate people. So you take the facts of this case, you take the facts of this defendant, you take the impact on the community, you take the impact on the victims, if there's victims there, and you have to weigh all of those things and decide, is this more punitive, is this more rehabilitative, is it going to be a combination of this or that? So I've worked with community corrections, Delaware County Community Corrections, utilizing the programs that they offer. I like figuring out and finding new avenues of treatment that's available just recently came back from Indianapolis and viewing the crisis intervention center that they've opened there, and working with some stakeholders to try and get one here for Delaware County. So yeah, it's been a whirlwind, and I've enjoyed it. It's a very, at times, a heavy job. It's not something I take lightly. There's a different, my staff would even tell you, there's a different air about me when I put my robe on. I'm no longer with the robe on, I'm no longer Amanda, I'm Judge, because my role and function in life at that point is different with the robe on.
Mm-hmm.
So.
And I've learned to not argue people that wear them black robes. A long time ago.
Yeah.
It can get you in trouble. But, you know, I've seen in your court, and you have, as you said, being on the serious side, you, and like I said, I've known you for a long time. I was at your swearing in. I took pictures at your swearing in, and your family was there, and a lot of people, a lot of good people, supporters, law enforcement, and things. You had a great support group there. And, you know, in court, you have a different air about you. You are very serious. You take the job serious, and I congratulate you for that. You have an array of different people there. Some of them's got problems of all kinds.
Yeah.
And, you know, and it has to be tough to, the three factors that you mentioned, you know, punishment, deter, and rehabilitation. And that's got to be hard to sort out sometimes.
It is, and you know, I'll tell you, growing up in a large family, growing up with loud, obnoxious brothers that we thankfully all have strong independent vibes in us, and so we're not afraid to defend our place, we're not afraid to speak our mind. Growing up in that environment has also given me, I don't know if humility is the right word, but the ability to know I don't know it all. If I've sat here for 10 minutes and listened to a sentencing hearing, if I'm not confident in what I'm going to do, I get up and take a step back. I take it under advisement to where I can think about it. If it's a trial and I'm deciding it's my discretion, or you know, it's my decision on whether it's guilt or not guilty, I have taken a recess and gone back into my office and shut the door and processed the evidence that I heard. It's being able to listen, being able to know that you're not the all-powerful. I'm just Amanda in a robe, listening to evidence that's submitted to me and taking that evidence with my knowledge of the law and applying the specific facts to the law that applies in rendering decisions. Some of those aren't easy, but it's a decision you have to make. Mm-hmm. But I think knowing that I'm not afraid to say I don't know, counsel, please give me your research. I need a moment to go research this law. I want to find out what this treatment center is about before I send. That I think has benefited me greatly.
So, have you had people come in your court and just be real disrespectful?
Oh yeah. Yes.
Yes. And that comes with, you know, you having to decide, are you in contempt of court or not?
Right. So I'm a problem solver. At the end of the day, I want to solve problems. So when someone comes into my court and they are loud, obnoxious, disrespectful, say they're wearing a shirt that has insignia on it that is inappropriate for a courtroom, my bailiffs will tell them they have to turn their shirt inside out, because I don't allow that kind of product into the courtroom, because it just affects the demeanor of the courtroom. Mm-hmm. I give a lot of people a lot of leeway, because I understand that they're probably at a low point in their life when they're there. So I do give a touch of leeway. But when enough's enough, enough's enough. And I will have the bailiffs remove the individual from the courtroom, give them an opportunity to cool down, be out in the hallway, do what you need to do. Before court's over, you're free to come back in. Typically that works. If that doesn't, when they're out in the atrium of City Hall, they will be dealing with law enforcement officers, and if they continue to be loud it typically ends up in a new charge. And so it's no longer up to me for contempt or not contempt, because now they're outside the courtroom, they're being told to do something by an officer and they're not complying, and that's out of my realm at that point.
And you have, in your court, people coming in that don't know to remove their hats or things like this. I've
Right.
seen that before there. And, it's just something you're always dealing with, these
Yeah.
different folks.
Yeah. Well, and I keep going back to this. When you work in the private practice, and I sat with clients across the desk for 15 years, you learn not everyone is like me. Not everyone's going to be like me. Not everyone has the upbringing I have, or the experiences I have, or the knowledge I have. Some people have more, some people have better, some people have less. So their unknowing coming in is sometimes just a fact of life. It's that.
They don't watch Law and Order, do they?
Yeah, well, and that's if courts were only like Law and Order. So yeah, I extend the courtesy to all who walk in. Now the bailiffs will tell you, you need to take your hat off, and if you don't, then it escalates. We have layers of response.
Mm-hmm.
But typically we don't have to get there.
I know throughout the years, and it's escalated through the years, drugs are a big problem. You see a lot of that, I'm sure.
Yes. What is the fix? I don't know. All I know is I want to be a part of the solution. There's a lot of people who come through my court that are self-medicating, meaning they are struggling from some level of mental health disorder or malfunction. I don't know what the right terminology would be. And so then they self-medicate with drugs or substances of some sort. So, you can send someone to drug treatment all you want. If they're self-medicating a mental health issue, you have to treat that as well. And that's where I think our community struggles. We don't have a mental health treatment that's 24/7 available right now. You have a certain window of time to reach people. So just recently have returned from Indianapolis. They are opening up, and the name escapes me, it's a crisis intervention center, to where it's ran 24/7. People who are in crisis, whether it be substance abuse crisis or mental health crisis, can walk in 24/7. It's confidential, it's safe. If you have a warrant, they don't call and report, but they will check you in. You can get a hot meal, you will have a place to shower and to sleep, and they are kind of the conduit to services. So if you go now in Delaware County, if you have a mental health episode, you're taken to the hospital, and the hospital can hold you for a certain amount of time, but then they're going to release you with an appointment. And a lot of times it's that time between release and the appointment where other crimes occur and other people get lost. And so how do we as a community catch that?
And we don't have here rehabilitation center or things like that.
We do have resources here, but I think they're stretched thin. The ones I'm familiar with and the ones that I work with are stretched thin. Now, I will refer people who come through my court to community corrections, Delaware County Community Corrections, and they do an evaluation. Used to be where in the plea agreements that I would accept, there would be specific treatment listed. And I've moved away from that because I don't know, you may be charged with battery, but maybe you don't have anger control issues. Maybe you have a financial stress that you've treated with alcohol and now have snapped. So sending you through anger management isn't going to help your substance abuse, or isn't going to give you the connections to cure your financial situations. So I now refer them just for an evaluation. Regardless of what crime you've committed through city court, you're going to get an evaluation. You're going to be ordered to complete whatever treatment is going to best help you become a productive member of society again. Meridian is a big one, but once you get through that emergency stage, there's a waiting time for your next appointment, and that's where people get lost.
And that downtime there.
Yes, a center like what they have in Indianapolis is where they would stay until a bed is available in an
I
inpatient place.
originally thought that they might do something like that with the Justice Center.
I think it's in the works.
Really?
I do think there's conversations being had with some stakeholders about a mental health treatment center at the Delaware County Justice Center now.
The new one?
The new one.
Okay.
Mhm.
Because I wondered, well, I thought at one time they might do something like that with the old one. I know now they're talking about either tearing it down or having apartments there. But, they got a big facility there that I thought, maybe they can do something like that there, and it's right downtown from where, the courts were and your court is, but obviously I think they got the plans, but I haven't even been in the new one since they took that over. I've been in there before they done it, but there's a lot of room there too, I guess.
Well, and I closed my private practice December of 2020 because I've now gone full-time in city court. So I've not had the opportunity to practice out there in the new one. I've been out there and I've toured it, and I've been a part of a couple different hearings out there in other capacities, but not as an attorney. So.
I see.
Yeah.
Well, let's see what happens with this one, the old one, but that would be good to have something here in Delaware County, because like you said, that downtime from here to the appointment, when somebody has substance abuse, I can see that's where they're going to have a problem.
Exactly, and that's where being able to work with all kinds of people and all different kinds of stakeholders is a benefit to elected officials. Being able to bring everyone together at the table to say, this is a need our community has. What resources do we have? What can we get to fix this need? And it takes people working together. It takes people understanding the system. It takes people understanding the problems. It takes that experience coming in to be able to say, this is what the need is.
Your court, now, you handle traffic violations, misdemeanors.
Yes.
Probably, you're seeing alcohol abuse, DUIs, drug abuse, etc.
Yes.
Everything up to a felony, I take it.
Correct. I hear no felonies.
So what you're hearing is still an array of different things.
Correct.
So can you give us a gamut of what that is?
Something as minor as operating without ever receiving a driver's license to domestic battery or battery causing injury. Yeah. Yeah. So, there's between public intox, which we see a lot of during football games and things of that nature, or minor consumings, to operating while intoxicated.
That was me back in the day.
I ought to be careful with some of these other things I'm going to rattle off because it's been you back in the day.
I'll shut up now.
So there is a range of possession of marijuana to possession of controlled substances, visiting a common nuisance. The major ones that we see are carrying a handgun without a license, domestic batteries, battery with injury, and DUIs. We have a lot of traffic offenses that are misdemeanors, but that's the nature of how the legislature has written the code. So.
How much percent, and I've had different people, prosecutors, judges, tell me, I want to get your perspective. What is percent of crime due to alcohol and drug abuse, you think?
Wow.
Because I'm going to tell you, most people will say it's about 80 to 90% probably.
I would say 80%, and I'm going to be speaking from my time as an attorney and as a judge. There's very few times that there's been a crime where the person has not had a history of drug or alcohol abuse or under the influence of some sort during the commission of the crime, something along those lines. So a
lot of people don't just wake up in the morning cold, stone sober and say, I'm going to go commit a crime.
Right. It's a lifestyle of drug addiction. It's a lifestyle of drug abuse that will lead you need to go steal something so you can sell it to get your next fix. You are going to break into a house because it's cold and you don't have and you're homeless. There's a factor of, it's always a relevant factor in most cases.
When I was in school, high school, maybe even junior high, in health class was talking about, people pimping women out to get drugs, get heroin, and this and that. I mean, just horror stories. And you know, I grew up in Randolph County, so there wasn't a lot going on over there. And I'm thinking, that's got to be someplace like California or Los Angeles or New York. And now you see that kind of stuff here.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, even over there, I mean, that's Farmville.
Mm-hmm.
And you see, unfortunately, that kind of stuff, and the fentanyl and the heroin and all that is just flooded into the area. Meth.
Mm-hmm.
And people say Muncie's known for its meth, but, you know, I don't know if that's because, you know, they report the meth crimes or what, but
Right.
there is a lot of drugs here.
There is. And there's a big drug problem, and it's, as stakeholders in the community, we have to come together and figure out how we're going to help solve this problem. Incarceration is a necessary evil. It's the punitive nature of sentencing. It's something that has to be done. But incarceration doesn't cure drug addiction, and it doesn't cure mental health.
Unfortunately, I knew somebody that was doing drugs, ended up doing heroin, would be incarcerated for trying to break in or trying to steal something, and spend about a year in jail, gain weight, and be sober, and then 10 minutes after they get out, they start again.
Right.
Start that cycle again.
Right.
And, you know, I've known some that would go to Richmond to the methadone clinic
Right.
and buy more drugs right in the parking lot.
Right.
I mean, somebody said, I hope they get a methadone clinic here. I said, not from what I've seen of them.
I don't have any experience with them, so I don't know if it works or if it doesn't work. I would be willing to sit down and listen to people who have facilitated them to get their information or to get their opinion to start forming one, but
Well, and the reason I say that, somebody close to me was doing that, and matter of fact, they got some extra in the parking lot there, ended up ODing and dying. And I'm thinking, how high do you have to get? And why is that so accessible there? When they have to, supposed to control that environment and see that that don't happen. But I wish they could find a solution.
yes, it would benefit every community, but especially ours greatly.
So, we've talked about how you got to where you are. You're a young lady. What's your future plans? What are you looking at doing? Furthering your law practice, or your being judge? And
Yeah. I've announced for Delaware County Circuit Court 1.
Mhm.
That will be on the ballot next year. And it, at this time, really feels like the natural evolution for my career. I've enjoyed my time with the misdemeanors and learning the judicial administration and all of the back scene of being a judge. I've enjoyed learning what it's like to sit on a bench and to seek out solutions and to implement solutions. And I'm ready to serve my community with my skills and experience at the next level, which is a general jurisdiction court of record in Circuit Court 1. The timing's right because Marion Voorhees is retiring, so there's an open seat.
Great judge.
Yes. So I'm ready to take on to the next step so I can serve my community in that expanded capacity.
Well, good for you.
Take my experience and knowledge to the bench with me.
And you'll be at the new facility if you do that.
Yes.
So that has got to be a big step.
Yes.
Well, good for you, and
Yes.
I wish you luck in that.
Well, I appreciate that.
And you've certainly brought a lot to the table, and you've got a background that just seemed to put you in this position.
Yes.
Well, good for you. Well, is there anything else you want to bring up?
You know, no, I don't think so. I'm not very, it's hard for me to talk about myself, so it's, yeah.
Well, you brought a lot to the table as far as knowledge and what goes on in the courts, and And you know, most people think of a judge as somebody that just puts on a robe and gets up on a bench, but like you said, you have a lot of administrative work to do behind the scenes.
Yes.
Back in that office back there.
Yes.
And I've seen you go to council and talk about budgets and all that, and there's just a lot going on back there.
Yes.
And you have to you work close in hand with whomever's in the clerk's office.
Correct. Yes.
I mean, that's like a two-part
Yes.
operation all the time, isn't it?
Yes. So the clerk is the keeper of the record for the court.
Mm-hmm.
So we do work hand in hand.
Good. And then the county, they have the county clerk, that part of that branch does all
Yes.
that too.
Yes.
Okay. See, back in the day, I didn't know hardly any of this.
Yeah,
I was
yeah.
just stumbling around thinking, what's going on? And I told Jerry Dishman, he was on the last show, if you'd have asked me 30 years ago what the city council done, I was,
Yeah.
So these last, might as well say 30 years I've been involved doing this kind of stuff here, the interviews and working with government and things I've done. I've learned a lot.
Yeah.
I don't know a lot, but I've learned a lot.
Well, and it's local government. I've represented multiple government agencies. You know, I've worked with the Board of Health and County Council, Commissioner's Office. A lot of the government agencies have what you see on the surface isn't everything that's entailed in the jobs. It's the surface is the top 10%. 90%
like an
of the
iceberg.
job, yes, 90% of the job is stuff that's done outside of the public view. So a lot of times people can have a skewed opinion of what the job is until you get into it.
And I know most people do.
Yeah.
They don't know all the particulars. Now, I think people are getting more educated now, which is a good thing.
Yes.
Because I think years ago, a lot of people didn't care if it wasn't in the news or big news. They really was detached from what was going on in their own community.
Yes.
So now they seem to be more enlightened with the technology we have now, the internet, social media, etc. I think they have more of an idea of what's going on.
And I would agree with that. I think with, people like you, with podcasts like this is how people see behind the scenes. This is how people can educate themselves to see what it takes to be a judge or a council member or whatever, whoever you're interviewing at the time. It gives them an insight into what's happening. So it's so I thank you and people like you for helping educate the public and giving us an opportunity to communicate with mass people.
Well, I appreciate that. People need to know. It's just like police officers and everybody that I've had on the show for years are people. Mm-hmm. I mean, they're flesh and blood people, and they're not just somebody in a uniform or a robe or sitting behind a desk somewhere. They're people. They got real concerns.
Yeah, and people who come in front of a court, they're more than a case number. They're more than a file jacket. They're more than whatever the charge is or whatever the civil case is. They're more than that. They are people, and they're people. The victims are more than just victims. They're people, and they've been affected by society or by the crime or by whatever it is before the judge. They've been affected by that, and so you want somebody in a role like that's got the temperament to listen, who's got the temperament to know that they don't know it all, and they're willing to seek out other, look at the law, let people submit evidence in, let people give you research, and learn along the way.
Good. And I appreciate your thoughts on that. And you always seem very concerned with the people you're dealing with. I know sometimes it's got to be hard. I've seen the courtrooms, and sometimes it's got to be a little hard.
Yes.
But
there's the time and place.
Yeah.
And you've got to be able to put your foot down. You've got to be able to hit your gavel and say enough is enough. And you've got to be able to make those tough calls, because some of them are tough.
I bet.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for being on the show.
Thank you, Roger.
Judge, and we appreciate it. Judge Amanda Dunnuck, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for watching Community Focus.